Welcome back and good morning. Thank you for staying with us here on the broadcast. We welcome your contributions. The hashtag on X is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub. Abdikadir with me in studio is Calvin Ayodi, who commentates on youth affairs. Thanks for your time. Good morning.
Good morning.
Maliba Arnold is also a public policy analyst. Your time is all appreciated, Arnold.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Nora Bosibori commentates also on policy affairs. Thanks for your time. Ambassador Njeri Kahiga is as well a commentator on public affairs, including the political and social one. To be specific, she is a national youth leader. Thanks for your time. And we also have Oponyo Akolo Eugene, who is the chair of the Wazalendo movement. Your time is all appreciated, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, taking stock of what has been a year up to a point dipped in discussions around the economy, the rule of law and governance, and also the voices of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. First, let's begin with a look at the front pages of the publication, and this is in relation to the war on corruption, which has been a subject matter that we have had a discussion around here on the broadcast. Beginning with you, Maliba Arnold, and to quote the trial magistrates yesterday, Eunice Newto, she said all the accused persons in this case are hereby acquitted under Section 210 due to lack of evidence as a result of the reckless dereliction of duty by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. This is a concern, is it?
Yes, it is a concern that at the time, and this has actually been quite a habit in the past, where we had highly sensationalized cases, but every time we go to court, it takes a little bit of time, and then we have cases that hogged a lot of national space, caused a lot of tension, even dictating national dialogue, only to end up being let go. I think it's time we allowed the rule of law to take root, so that then we don't have to politicize cases of corruption. Because immediately this turns out this way, then what hope do people have in the fight against corruption? How are you going to look at EACC going forward? How do you look at DCI that were quite instrumental in this? But over and above, how do you look at ODPP? We don't inspire confidence when we politicize and dramatize cases. Then at the end of the day, it turns out this way. I'll tell you, this is going to divide the nation into two. People will be like, kind of, this is just one way of actually dealing away with it. But then we've seen that consistently, at least for the last 7, 10 years. This has actually been, it's been a way of doing things. And it doesn't inspire hope. It doesn't just give us confidence.
Bosibore, coming to you, besides the now end of the cases that had faced the former Treasury boss, is it not concerning that what's involved was the taxpayers' money, which was lost, and the case collapsing? I mean, where will accountability lie for the taxpayers' hard-earned money?
Ayub, thanks for the opportunity once more. So what we, like my friend Arnold said, we really have to relook our approach, especially in terms of our independent institutions. We've seen how our institutions have been weaponized to fight, instead of fighting corruption, instead they're fighting dissenters and people who do not agree with maybe the people in power. So then we have to relook on our approach in various institutions, and of course also considering that a lot of public resources are lost in public offices. For example, you remember John Githongo, the whistleblower. He said that our biggest challenge as government is budgeted corruption. So then we use legal processes to steal money from government coffers. So this is just legal theft, whereby people steal money using legal processes, using procurement processes, and at the end of the day, when they go to court, processes are there, procedures are there, and then when you go to the back of it all, you realize that there is no mistake that has been made. Everything was documented. So what we have to look at is the phenomenon that is called then budgeted corruption. Let's look and see what exactly is wrong with our procurement processes. Which are these loopholes that allow public officers to steal from our coffers? And then if we can be able then to relook our structures and our frameworks as a nation, then we can be shifting the attitudes so that the government can now be able to work with a lot of confidence.
Mm-hmm. Coming to you, Oponyo, I mean, it's a subject matter which is clearly hand on heart for many Kenyans is a concern. I mean, looking at the effects of corruption, looking at those who are competent from job opportunities in a country where largely now it's becoming a tradition that connections matter than competency and qualification. And this, more than 60 billion Kenya shillings gone.
Thank you, Ayub. That is a philosophical question and a topic at the same time. But I love a different perspective. You know, the way we came up to form Wazalendo movement, it is because we realized we as Kenyans, we've lost values. We no longer care about our country. People now care about their self-interest, which is unfortunate. That's why we came up with the Wazalendo movement Africa, to make sure now we instill values to the young people, to realize you need to love your country, to realize corruption should be a thing of the past, not just by talking and organizing crusades about corruption. No, we Kenyans, we've lost value. We think about ourselves more than we think about our country. If you remember in 1963, when we gained our independence, people are more pro-Kenya more than they are right now. If you ask anyone, they will tell you, I will only do this if I'm getting a cut. That is the same notion we have even this government, even in the opposition. Someone wants to participate in something because they are benefiting, not because we are doing this for the public interest. So when I saw that the former CS for Treasury was acquitted, yes, I understand the cases were political. But at the same time, the office he's in was political. Being a cabinet secretary, you are in a political office. You got into office through a political process. So if that happened, you need to realize that we should stop mixing politics. You remember in 2013 when the Jubilee government got into power, they tried to put technocrats into the cabinet to reduce the political tension and all that. But then we have now the DPP who takes instructions from State House in the past regime. That's why many people were taken to court without evidence. But now we have a new DPP, we have a new DCI. We should look at it from this perspective, that we Kenyans, we are there to support the government institution to fight corruption. But the government institutions are not instilling confidence in us to see like whatever they are doing is right. If you arrest a CS, take them to court, charge them, then later on tell us there is no evidence. What were you doing? Why did you take them to court if you had no evidence? That's where we are still struggling as Kenyans to realize what is good for us and what is bad for us. If the CS was really innocent, that should have been spelled out from the word go. Not taking him to court, then later on acquitting him.
When you talk about the aspect of our value systems, and you pointed out how institutions are at the moment underperforming and not meeting the constitutional threshold of doing what they ought to do as dictated by Katiba. I mean, the office is just a structure that is there, or the institution. It's the occupants who matter. And these occupants are Kenyans. They are adult, they are qualified to be there. But do they, in some sense, also lack value? Because if you just prosecute someone, you just want him to be hauled before a court of law, and you know there's no proper evidence, then that calls into question the value system and the integrity of the persons holding the offices of the criminal justice system, is it?
Yes, I agree. I agree 100%, because majority of these people were in court. If you ask them, some will say we are innocent. But you know, you will only be innocent until proven guilty. You see, so we've made it look like it is the people in the offices, the occupants, who are the reason as to why we are in this mess we are in. Why? I don't know what happens, but if you look at the people who are selected to work for the government, they end up being not doing what they were supposed to do. Do you know, this is the reason why they never end up doing what they were supposed to do. Majority of the people get into the office because of someone else's interest. We don't get to the office because of merit. We no longer do that. But that's why we are coming in as Wazalendo movement to instill those values, the integrity issues. If you give me a job right now over here, I'll have mercy unto you. Whatever you tell me to do, that's what I'll do. All these institutions in this country, People have been put there purposely to serve someone else's interest. Until we stop that, until we realize this country belongs to us, if we loot everything, it's us suffering.
Okay.
You can see the way the economy is. We are in this mess because people looted the treasury.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our courts of law, coming to you, Njeri, are courts of evidence. It depends on the threshold of the evidence that you bring before a court of law. And to just quote what the magistrate yesterday further said, to quote her, she said the prosecutors failed to lead evidence from the 41 witnesses by telling this court, she meant the court, we have no questions for these witnesses. Yet they had more than 40 witnesses. I mean, this is well choreographed, is it? Looks like a plan to fail from the onset.
Thank you so much, Ayub. What I would want to say in regards to this case is that we are living in a nation whereby if you are politically correct when a new regime comes in, you are assured of whatever skeletons that were in your closet will not be exposed to the public. I'm looking at a situation, being a national youth leader, I'm looking at a situation where if these people were politically wrong, the former CAs and the team that was taken to court, if they were politically wrong, would we have this court give the same verdict to this case? If at all the people who are being mentioned in this case as key witnesses, if they were all politically wrong, would this still be the case? We are looking at a situation whereby in future, everybody is going to be looking at being politically correct for you to safeguard the illegalities that you did when you were in a certain office. And that narrows down to we are making civil servants break the law because they're not supposed to be partisan in politics. They're supposed to be non-partisan. But the moment a civil servant knows that as long as I support the current regime, as long as I support the politicians in power, I am immune to the courts, I am immune to being prosecuted. We will never at any time have accountability from these systems of government. And it narrows down to the county levels, down to the ward levels. Anytime anybody is politically correct, they are safe. Anytime you are not politically correct, that happens.
Mm-hmm. Kelvin, what do you make of this? I mean, we talked about institutions. We gave ourselves a progressive, eloquent, self-explanatory constitution with an array of institutions like the DPP, who we had, they establishes other offices, which are constitutional offices. But still, we seem to be struggling with getting it right when it comes to the successful prosecution of corruption. And isn't it worrying that besides the damning indictment by the magistrates yesterday, that what's at stake here and we are talking about is the loss of more than 65 billion Kenya shillings?
Yeah, I agree with you that it is worrying, Ayub, because 60 years after independence of our country, we are not still yet independent. Those institutions are not independent as they are supposed to be. Matters concerning corruption, especially here in this country, it depends with which side of the political divide you are, and it also depends with how you take the views from the government. For example, you realize that most people are prosecuted. You will start to be prosecuted when you mention something maybe that goes against the government's will. Look at the control of budget. When we put her to office, we did not see that she had any integrity issues. But right now, because she told us something truthful that Kenya should hear, we started seeing that she is actually involved in integrity issues. What I can say here is that we are not yet going to fight this corruption to completion anytime soon. This is the reason. Most Kenyans, let me say 80% of Kenyans, are corrupt by nature. It's only that they have not been exposed to an opportunity to be corrupt. Most Kenyans, they shout on the media and everywhere that so and so is corrupt, but when you give them money to hold in a particular office, you realize that they will be corrupt also. So if we have such mentality, it simply means that for us to fight corruption, it is actually going to take us ages. And also what I can say, corruption is a process, and corruption involves a chain. When I'm holding an office, let's say the CS Treasury, for me to go away with 63 billion and I go to court and there is no evidence, it simply means that there was a chain. I did not actually involved in that scandal alone. If you are alone in that scandal, it's easier for you to be prosecuted because everyone else around you will go to the public or will go to the court and produce the evidence you're looking at. But if we were corrupt like all of us here in the studio here, there is no way that we'll go to court and produce the evidence we need.
Okay.
I think
briefly before I
just needed to point out this, that it's not true that all Kenyans are corrupt.
Well, that's unfair. It's blanket condemnation, isn't it?
I said most Kenyans at 80%, not all.
Okay. Actually, we depend on the stats and numbers.
Even with the numbers, there is no cogent data to support that. I just needed to say that probably what he meant was that a majority of Kenyans are corruptible, but not corrupt. Otherwise, saying that 80% of us are corrupt without evidence, he actually needs to say sorry to the nation.
Yeah, we are not saying that all Kenyans are corrupt or majority are corrupt. We are saying that most of them have not been exposed to a chance to be corrupt. That's the point.
Well, that then speaks of a broken and a decaying value system.
Yes.
As a society.
Correct.
If that's the case, then, I mean, how can we then set up? Because in the end is that these officers created, and I come to you. Thanks for joining us, Wanjohi Njoroge, climate change and restoration consultant, for making time for the broadcast. And largely, when we talk about our value systems, it's our kids and fellow Kenyans who will end up occupying all these offices, because they're expected by virtue of the responsibility bestowed upon anyone who serves in government to live by the dictates of the Constitution and serve in offices if the opportunity is given. Then, I mean, is this not a value system which is broken that we carry on when even we serve in such positions, therefore calling into action what was yesterday, for example, damning in the case which ended for the former Treasury CS, Henry Rotich, in which the court said that the prosecution had, as a result of reckless dereliction of duty, abandoned this case?
First and foremost, we have to start by looking at our leaders. Which of our current leader as a nation inspires the young generation to live by the values of our Constitution? And I'm sorry, I see none. And when I look at the because every day there is a corruption case. Every single day there is a corruption case. And the question that I ask myself is, how much is enough? How much money is really enough? How much money can you steal? I'm sitting on one chair. Even if there were 10 chairs here, I wouldn't sit on them. I'm only sitting on one chair. But the truth is that we lack patriotism. If I join government today, the first thing that comes to mind is how much wealth can I amass? Because it's my time to eat. So even the younger generation, who we always say that the leaders of tomorrow, leaders of today, they are also looking forward to going to government to do the same, to amass enough wealth for themselves, to amass enough wealth for the future of their generations. When you think about elections, you voted in today, you have to start thinking about the next election and where is the money for campaigning coming from. But then corruption doesn't happen in a vacuum. We are enablers of this corruption. When a leader comes, and I vied in the last general election, when a leader comes to the ground, we want the one that is chomaing jeshi the most, you know? So, but we never pause to ask ourselves, where is this money coming from? And even if I'm getting it from my pocket, I have to find a way of recovering it, because the return on investment, you know, so we need to have a broader conversation. And when you look at our religious institutions as well, they are the biggest recipients of corrupt money. When you think about money laundering, for instance, when I, as a leader, I come and donate 1 million in this church, I go to the next church and I donate 1 million. I go to the next church and donate 1 million. Do I, as a religious leader, ask myself, where is this money coming from? And the children who go to these religious institutions, be it churches or mosques, what are they learning? That for you to be a leader, you have to have a lot of money, you know. So, and I worry that there is no hope for the future at this point. And I think we are beyond repair as a nation. Okay.
There are, however, calls for optimism. When we get back from the break, ladies and gentlemen, we focus our attention on taking stock of what has been a year up to a point dipped in the discussions around the economy. We have had Kenyans who had voiced their concerns and support for what was the finance bill, now an act of parliament. The courts that subsequently also issued orders in some moves by the government. Also the question around the rule of law, governance and the principles of constitutionalism, and the voices of the women, the youth and persons with disabilities as we head into the year 2024. That will be coming up after the break here on the broadcast. The hashtag on X is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. We are back with more after the break. Stay tuned.